Okay, so next morning, need to cut this and then re-weld it. So I'm just gonna cut out the middle third. So we've got 400 long. So we're gonna do 400 divided by 3, 133.3 recurring. So go along, 133, 266. Put a line on there. Now the easiest way of getting this straight is to put some tape on. Put it down. Now I don't want to cut through the middle of a spot weld ideally, so I'm going to just adjust it, make it a little bit easier for myself. So I'm not going to go through the middle like that. Spin it round. Same thing. Perfect. Now what a lot of people will do is they'll just use that as a guide, but what I'm going to do to make it again easier for myself is put a little line on. Little cut line on and then pull it off. So what I'll do now is I'll do the same for the other side. Okay, so I've got both lines on. I've had to move this one that way a little bit, so it's a little bit out, but it doesn't matter, it's not 100% accurate on the numbers. But it's just a good idea to miss a spot weld. Otherwise, if you cut through the middle of a spot weld, it's really complicated to re-weld it afterwards. So I'll put my earplugs in. Got ear defenders as well, so if I'm shouting a bit, that's why. Put some gloves on. Got an air saw that's a little bit broken, but got a new blade put in it that hopefully will cut down through these. The idea is I'm going to cut into them without cutting through the inner. If you do that on a car and you cut into the inner panels, you're going to really weaken the vehicle, and then you have to weld them up again. They're never quite the same. So important. We'll cover that bit when we get to it. So on an angle. So I'm just going to make the cuts to there. It's clamped down so it's not moving, a bit like it would be on a car, so it's not going to check about, and then we turn around. That one went a little bit crooked. So let's cut the main parts. What I'm going to do now is drill these spot welds out, and then so that I don't cut into the layer underneath, I'm going to tap a small piece of metal underneath when I cut it. Okay, so I've moved it over the edge a little bit because I wanted to demonstrate the spot saw drill and the normal flat bottom drill. So because of the way that this sticks out here slightly, it's sometimes a little bit harder to get on, but you can sometimes turn it sideways. But we'll try it out, see how it works on this one. Yeah, Yeah, so this is great. This is great if you can access both sides. And if you're using it this way around, it's quite nice. We could move this. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to swap over to the normal one. I find these a little bit easier. Much nicer cut, and these are brand new blades, drill. So what you've got to do is you've got to keep stopping and looking to see if you've gone through when you've gone through the top layer only. Check it, you can use a thin hammer. As long as the metal runs all the way up through the handle, you can give these a little tap. So that one's cut. So I'm just going to stop the video, take a photo of that, and then I'll be back. Okay, so what I did is just tap this along a little bit, only really lightly, until it has overlapped where I'm going to be cutting, so I'll take a photo of that one as well. By doing that, you can use the splitting chisel as well. So if you've got one of these that hasn't quite come apart, you can put one of these under, great for door skins as well. Tap it under something and then hit it along. It's got a cutting edge on the side. But the thickness of that compared to how thick that is, more likely to bend the material. So by using that really thin one, I've hardly affected it. Then all I need to do is get a piece of just bare steel, tap it in. As long as it's under where I'm cutting, bend it out of the way. Like this. Make sure I put my PPE back on. Put it in the cut. And cut down till it releases. Okay? So seen that once. I'm just going to turn it off so you don't have to watch too much of it repetitively, and then I'll do the others and then I'll come back. Okay, it only took about a minute. Drilled the rest of them. This is the last one to cut. There you go. So it comes out. I've caught the blade in there a little bit, but it's only just scratched it a tiny bit. Here, there's no marks at all, but I'll take some photos of that now, and then I just need to clean up all the flanges, get it ready to weld back in. Okay, so decent hammer and dolly that's all been cleaned up. These are just sticking up a little bit. Come into here, little tap. Just so they flatten down. I'll do the same with this as well, although that's pretty flat. Maybe just a tiny bit on that end. Okay, so the next thing. So the idea is you don't drill these spot welds through too far, because if they go down too far, they're cutting through to the next piece of material, and it's going to make it weaker, like I said earlier. Some people end up drilling all the way through, which is a really bad thing, because then it's really hard to plug them back in. So what I'm going to do is use one of these fibre discs, which isn't going to remove too much of the metal, because we don't want cars nowadays that are really thin, like 0.7 of a millimetre. If you go grinding off 0.1 of a millimetre that side and 0.1 that side, then you're really at like half a millimetre, so it's getting thin. And you do that with all three, especially if you're watch some of the YouTube videos. They're going at it with a belt sander and there's sparks everywhere. If there's sparks, that means the metal's getting thinner. You're going to get some sparks when you're doing this because these top sections you need a little bit actually to remove some of the metal that's left on there. So that it's flush. So if this was a real car, you're going to end up with adhesives in here and quite a few coatings. Because we're going to spot weld them together, we need to remove those coatings to bare steel, and we need bare steel on all four of the contact areas. So the back where the spot welder is going to go, if we're spot welding it, we need it on this surface, and this surface. If this was a real job, we're going to put this one in, but if this was a real job, we would be making a whole new section, or buying a whole new section, and then what we do is you would lay it over it. So this would be your new section. You'd lay it over on the quarter panel on your car or whatever, clamp it all, then you'd use the saw again to cut down through it. So once you remove the two spare pieces, you'll end up with a dead square 1 millimetre gap butt weld. Some people, if you've watched some of the American videos, they like to use disc cutters. I prefer a saw, it's a lot more delicate and doesn't heat the metal up. But anyway, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clean up all of these and then come back once that's ready. Okay, so I've cleaned them all up. What we would use is, you can get zinc rich primer, which means it's something like 98.8% pure zinc. Or you can get, there's a couple of other different ones, you get an aluminium spray and you can get copper spray. Now you only want it on the surfaces that are mating, so that go between the two surfaces. You don't want it all over the other surfaces you're going to be welding and things like that, because it does interfere slightly with the welding process. So I've stuck a bit of tape over the edges, well ventilated area, wearing a mask, reading the instructions, shows you for a certain amount of time you would degrease this area, make sure there's no dirt on it in reality, and then a light coating just like that is good enough. So I'll repeat that on the other three surfaces and then come back. Okay, so the whole thing's prepared to put back together. What we're going to have to do now is clamp these before we weld them to stop them moving. So distortion, when the metal gets hot, will make it move. So if I was to tack it here, this would be moving and everything would end up in the wrong place. So you've got self-locking grips. These are Draper ones. Now people call them mole grips. Mole was the first manufacturer, or one of the biggest manufacturers, I don't know which way around. So these are self-locking grips, self-locking, sometimes called C grips. You've got loads of different types of these, but they're welding grips because you can put this either side of a weld that you're going to do and it will hold it there. These are again some sort of Wolfcraft, I don't know what these are really, but some sort of ratchet self-locking ones. These are quite nice if you're doing some welding. Loads of different pairs of these, all with different ends on. Again, you can grip here and that is precisely where they are. I think that if you measure the gaps between the welds, we did 30, which is quite a common spacing. So now the plan with this is that you would use either a little rule like I had there or a larger one, and I'll just do a photo of how you've got to get it, because if this isn't level you end up with a lot of problems later on trying to sand it and fill it and with panel alignment, door alignment, things like that. So what we're going to do for the minute is we're going to line the edge up, put a pair of grips on, and then do the next one. Line the edge up, where grips on. What you need to try and maintain is that saw cut that we had. If two pieces of metal butt up against each other, when they're cold, when they heat up, they expand, they're going to push into each other, and that will cause distortion. If you've got a small gap, it allows for thermal expansion. Posh word there. That's pretty good. Spin it round. Now you can see this is nowhere near aligned, so we need to pull that in. Try and get the gap. Put the grip on. Pull the next side in. Right, now at the moment that really is sticking up, so I'll take a photo. I can put it into the video later on. So we're going to move into the welding bay, but the next part is how we get this level and how we tack it. I've got to have this really tiny thin rule. You can also use a piece of like the saw blade, and you can just put that in the gap, and you use it to lever the gap one way or the other, depending on where you need it. Okay, so to the welding bay.